Hi, everyone. Hi to those who are just joining. Um, I'm just going to be letting people in as they join to give me a second if I'm a little bit interrupted. But I'd love to hear just in the chat if you can hear me okay. I've done one of these before where the first 5 minutes I was chatting away happily and nobody could hear me. So what I'd really appreciate is if you could pop a little yes in the chat. Fantastic. Yes, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, D Crouch. I never know everybody's first name, so sorry if I refer to you in thanks, Jody, in the chat, and I don't I don't use your first name, but whatever you've got in there as your name. Hi there to everybody that's joining. Thank you so much for coming along. So I'm going to just start by telling you who I am. My name is Greg. It seems like a good place to start. My name is Greg. I'm the founder at Smart School Councils. We are a charity which is all about helping young people to find their voice. What else should I say? I'm going to show you a bunch of slides and resources, and honestly, I'll send everything to you afterwards. You've got enough on your plate, I'm sure, after a busy day's teaching or in the classroom or in school to worry about scribbling everything down. So I will send you everything afterwards. And if I don't have your email, actually I must do if you're in this event. So that's me. Let me tell you a bit about kind of why I'm here. I guess I started Smart School Councils as a charity because I'm from a very working class background and was very quiet and ended up going to one of the best unis in the UK and really was absolutely struck at my inability to stand up and deliver any kind of speech or basically speak in front of people. Sorry, I'm just admitting more people, and I guess that really stuck with me. And over the kind of four years of university, I realised that I wasn't any less smart than some of the pupils who'd been to the very, very best schools in the country. I just hadn't had that practice and inner confidence to give more speaking a go. So yeah, I set up Smart School Councils about 7 years ago. Started in 2 schools in Tottenham. I don't know if there's any Tottenham schools here, but hello if there are. And now we're working in about 650 schools across the UK. I'm also based in Lisbon. I don't know if anyone's been here on holiday. It's a beautiful city. I came out here during lockdown and basically just was very happy and decided to stay. I'd love to hear where you are in the world. So if you could pop in the chat, where were you? Where's your school? And I'd love to hear where your school is. If there's any schools internationally as well, sometimes there is a few that are around. Yeah, just good to hear where you are. Victoria's in West Yorkshire. Hi, Victoria. Thanks for coming along. Shropshire, Gloucestershire, Thurrock. It's not quite as sunny as Lisbon. It's actually a bit cold today. Eastbourne, Cumbria, Mansfield, Somerset, Wiltshire, Manchester, Bristol. Wow, there's a lot of big range of places. Romford, Swindon. I'm in Bunny, Nottinghamshire. Is that the name of a place? That's cool, isn't it? Bunny. Rotherhithe, South London. Big welcome to everybody. I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. Thanks everyone for coming along because I know how much you have on, especially in kind of mid to late September. So beyond the British values display. Now, let me start. I'm okay with displays. I'm not going to criticize displays. Displays are pretty cool, aren't they? But I guess what we're going to be sharing today is just thinking through some ideas to go beyond it, because displays, I think, only have a kind of limited ability to help young people to learn. So yeah, that's the kind of, it's a bit of a cheeky title, but don't let me criticize your displays too much. So, and yeah, this is us. I mentioned this. So charity, all about pupil voice, debate, democracy, school councils, easier without all the extra workload because you've got lots on. And I guess what I'm going to share is like 5 ideas really. And maybe they'll get a bit more challenging as we go. I'm not sure, but keen to get your thoughts and ideas as we go along. But let's start, I guess, with what we're looking at. So what what is happening with British values, particularly with the new inspection guidance, which from November, when inspections kick off again. Apologies, I am just going to let more people in the room. Quite a popular webinar, this one. Well, it's great. So let's look at that. Let's look at that new guidance. So we've got something which is pretty much unchanged from the last one. Sorry, I'm really interrupted by people joining. I'll keep going. So we've got the new inspection guidance, which is basically very similar in some ways as the last one. So the idea of British values of democracy, rule of law, individual liberty, mutual respect and tolerance of those with different faiths and beliefs. So most of that is unchanged. And as I'm sure we know all those British values off by heart already, but also I guess there's a few extra things in there which with the inspection guidance, I think are worth highlighting. So we have and this is a big one, which, I mean, RFC has been talked about a lot in, I guess, before Labour got into power, but now we can see it a little bit more explicitly. So here's what it says in the inspection guidance about RFC. All pupils are explicitly taught how to communicate effectively through spoken language. And we also have references to discuss and debate issues and ideas in a considered way. And there's also, finally, just a little reference to pupils becoming responsible, respectful, and active citizens who can play their part in public life as young people and adults. Now, I guess the idea, I don't know what your own views about British values are as a concept. I've got some that are negative and some that are positive. But I think overall, where I come from with this is that this framework isn't necessarily perfect from my own personal view, but these are really valuable skills for pupils. And I guess where I also come at this from is it doesn't make sense to isolate the learning of British values and the understanding of British values. It doesn't make sense to isolate those or that learning from the other stuff that's in here that's really, really closely linked. I'd love to get your thoughts on that if you agree or disagree, but it feels like that's one thing, or you can definitely kind of help to solve some of those problems in one go. So I guess where I come from it is that we should try and tie them together a little bit in a way that's meaningful, led by pupils, involves all pupils, because explicitly in the guidance it's about all pupils. It can't be a subsection of pupils who just get to learn about British values. It's for all. It's evidence, and it's easy for staff because we have so much on. We are not just British values factories. there's lots of other things going on. So that's what I kind of want to share with you. Ideas for making some of these ideas tie together a bit easier, evidence and easy for staff. I hope that makes sense. I can't see you, so I hope there's one or two nods happening from the people that I can see. Great. Okay, so let's move on to these 5 ideas. And I think I preface them just with one big idea, which isn't necessarily like a very practical one, but I think that, I mean, having set up smart school councils, I kind of have a strong view that schools are really at the heart of our democracy and really places that should be and that do teach a huge amount to young people already about democracy and respect and rules and all these things that you're doing as educators and teachers already, rather than places that democracy shouldn't touch. And I think what we need to be doing is to be bringing out some of that. And that's not to argue that your school should be a democracy, because it's not, is it? It's a place, it's adults are largely in charge. Obviously, the young people can influence things, but we're not saying that schools can be democracy, but they should be places where it's a really good place to learn about democracy. And I think just to bring that idea forward, we really like it. Whatever you've got in terms of pupil voice, pupil leadership, school council, student parliament, whatever, we think it's a great idea to show some of that democracy in action. understanding and experiencing that is the best way to really help pupils understand that they're part of this democratic world that they live in. And this is one way that we suggest, and I'll share, if anyone wants a copy of this progress board that I'm just going to show to you, then please pop a message in the chat and I'll send it on. But basically, rather than minutes and kind of quite boring stuff on, like, stuff that people wouldn't read, here's our suggestion to show democracy in action. We have different projects. We have a visual representation of how they look and how far along they are, who's in charge, what pupils leading them, what's happening. So what's the latest in with the recycling project, boxes project? When is it expected to finish? Also with democracy, there's this weird thing, like young people learning about democracy doesn't mean that they can get to do anything, right? That's just not how a democracy works. And that's quite often an issue with pupil voice as well. It's kind of like, oh yeah, guys, you can do anything. It's over to you. But it's just not how the world works. So I think what we like to do with our kind of democracy progress board or pupil voice progress board, whatever you want to call it, is also be really super clear about the things that we can't do. So pupils understand that there are limits and guidelines to what we can do in a democratic system. So we can't change the uniform because it was changed 2 years ago. We can't build a swimming pool in the playground. There's no space. It costs too much money. And also we're kind of celebrating the successes there. So alongside things being changed in the school, like let's just talk about it, let's make it visible. Progress boards, obviously you can do things like assemblies and feedback loops and sharing it more widely. But this is one way that we like to share it. And here's a couple of examples in mainstream settings. I can see lots of yes pleases in the chat. So yeah, I'll definitely share the headings that we have here. So this I think is a good companion to your British values display, maybe, that says, well, actually, here's the stuff we're learning about democracy in our school. This is a display, and here's what is putting it into action. And that combo, I think, is a good step for young people to make. So here's a couple of examples. One on the left's not as fancy. The one on the right is fancy. And also here's a example in an SEN setting. So we have symbols. It's indicating how far along the project is, which is really cool. Really love this example as well. So I don't know if anyone's in an SEN setting or an AP setting and they want to get access to these, I can definitely share them over as well. I think it's just as important, if not more so, in SEN to be showing this. So that's my first tip. I'll keep going because I've got lots of ideas and I don't want to get stuck on just another display for you to do. So the second one's a bit quicker in name and also, I guess, like me describing it. So kind of having set up, having worked with about 650 schools on our program, we see that like democracy, pupils really get it. And they really get the ideas of having a say in fairness and respect, which are all kind of, aligned with British values when they see and experience it. And kind of one of the things I think helps schools is because they're quite broad concepts, aren't they? You're kind of doing them every day. And how do you actually make a project from them? I think sometimes a bit of focus per term might be a helpful idea. So a question you could ask pupils is something like, what is one change we could make in our school this term to make it a fairer, more equal and respectful place? Maybe slightly more secondary language there, or maybe not, I don't know. And maybe that ends up with 3 different projects that you do each year. And maybe that could be a British values challenge each term, sorry. And they don't necessarily need to be huge changes. They could be small and tangible. But I think the idea of fairness, and you guys are all working in schools, you'll have a stronger sense than me of how present fairness is in young people's minds. I think it's quite often very front of mind for young people. So that's just an idea about quick wins, and British Values Challenge is one way that you could do it, but it could just be this term. It could be up until Christmas. What could we do before Christmas? And we're going to focus on that. Okay, that's my Second idea, quick wins. Thirdly, now you wouldn't expect me to go through a whole webinar without talking about school councils, and this is this is where I'm a little bit more challenging, I think. So, one of the reasons we have a school council in school is so that young people can have a say and use their voice and learn about democracy. My point of view is, and the research that we've done with the Institute of Education, is that actually a traditional school council on its own typically teaches poor lessons about democracy. And I'll just sort of break that down because I don't want to be too challenging. I don't think it's your fault, by the way. I guess I'm saying that when you elect a small group of pupils at the start of the year, it's typical from the research that we've done that it's the more able, more confident, and more advantaged pupils who get to have a say. So quite often the voices who are invited in to have a voice in democracy in your school are the ones that maybe don't need it as much as everyone else. And I'm not saying do away with your school council because I think it's amazing that they get involved, but I'm saying that the traditional model on its own, I think, needs a bit more inclusion and it needs a bit more reaching out to the rest of your school. And why is that important? I guess for British values, we're saying that everybody needs to get an understanding and experience of democracy, not just 15 pupils who, people don't really hear from again after maybe the first term. So we're saying council alone can't involve the whole school because typically it's more confident pupils who get involved. So what we say is use your school council who get elected maybe round about now. I don't know where you are in that process, but use them to then reach out to the school through quick pupil-led class discussions in every class or every form or every tutor group. And I'll just show you kind of quickly what they look like. So this is a class meeting happening in a primary school. I'm sure there's some primary teachers and educators here today. The key thing here is this is pupils leading pupil voice and democracy here rather than teachers. It's obviously there's much more learning available when pupils lead it, and it's easier for you and your staff to manage. So this is a class meeting. It's led by two pupils. It takes 5 or 10 minutes. This school, it's just like a short, engaging format. It's built around a simple question each week, and it directly involves everybody in a democratic discussion. And so that's how we take this idea, which is, I guess, let's get everybody involved, which is nice, but maybe me just sounds like me being a bit woolly. It's actually saying, well, actually, no, let's get everybody involved regularly in an active democratic discussion. What that looks like, and I can, if anyone's interested, I can kind of share kind of what this looks like in a class. Is you would hand over to two pupils. One would be the leader. Welcome to today's class meeting. Pick your class, put your details in, your meeting leader, and those roles should rotate ideally because then different pupils are getting a go. I'm just going to skip past that because that's my last question. And then in this school, they've asked a question about mental health. So actually, this is my dummy data. It's from earlier in the year. Mental health was in February. Theme was Let's Connect. How could we improve how we connect with others at school? So they've got 5 different answer options here that they've picked. And that helps the class do democracy and do getting their voices heard in a short, snappy, focused way that isn't 45. It doesn't go off into 45 minutes long because you don't have time to that. And the questions, we have about 2,000 of these questions that our schools pick from, or you can kind of do your own. So any questions about that? Happy to just check the chat, see I've not confused anyone yet. No, okay, cool. Do pop any. What's that app called, Jodie? Good question. So this is the Smart School Councils program, and it really is just runs on a browser. Really, it's not really. I guess it's like a web app, and I can talk more about it at the end. But yeah, the idea of it really is let's get pupils running in classes to have a short pupil-led meeting about a discussion or question that you've picked. Yes, you can have a link, Jodie, to have a look. I'll pop that in afterwards. So I'm going really feel like I'm going really quickly, but I'll keep going. Right. Okay. So tip number 4, and this is sort of saying that if you have a system to involve everybody, maybe through class councils or class meetings, like I've suggested here, actually, why not tackle some of those really interesting British values topics through pupil-led debates? Because given what we've said about oracy and the handbook, that the kind of new inspection framework coming in November, it's like there's some really, really interesting topics there. So in this example, so this is the tool that I just shared you, but it's a question about should pupils have to listen to views they strongly disagree with? So that's more of an individual liberty style question. I think that's a really great question. It's obviously like a really hot topic in the world at the moment. And so we have like a video which helps to break that down and put both sides, because sometimes it's hard to support a debate, I guess, properly. Um, so yeah, I guess we would suggest with British values generally, as well as like maybe focusing on some change style things, like one change that we can do this term to make school better or fairer, why not also help pupils to have debates? Because there's so much going on in the world. Like you just switch on the news to see actually most of the debates, most of the, well, a lot of the discussions in the national news do relate to these. It's just about doing it in a safe and structured way, I guess. So yeah, use debates once you've got your kind of class meetings or everything else set up. Um, Here's another one. This is one we did a couple of weeks ago. Is it important to conform in society? Good question. And that's obviously talking about like mutual respect and tolerance, that kind of thing. And we also suggest if you're doing those types of debates, and I'll share these slides, you can have access to all these questions if you like any of them. Also, you can do kind of current affairs one. Obviously, this question here about Rachel Reeves was just before summer, actually. She was crying in the House of Commons in front of others. Is crying a sign that you've lost control? It's not necessarily a straight up British values one, but it is helping young people um, engage with like the world of work, broadening horizons a bit, and also with current affairs as well. I think it's also a great question that I don't know the answer to. So and then this is one we've got this week. Again, I'll send these out if you wanted to have a look. Obviously, this is the big one in the news at the moment. Should the right to protest always come before the need to maintain public order? Really good question. We don't really have time to dig into what you think, Victoria. Yeah, no problem. Happy to share them. And so, yeah, and then I think probably for my final tip that I would share is just to keep it simple. I think there's a few different things here that you can kind of group and tick off together. I know, sorry, I'm not using tick off as like a tick box exercise because that's typically what it's called as. But the idea that framing this whole idea of British values really is as a kind of way of getting across the idea that it helps people to speak up and develop and grow as active citizens. You know, I think kind of gives it a clearer, more persuasive rationale with your staff and your colleagues, and also young people, because that's something that they that's something that I think that they can get behind a bit more. Speaking up and debating is feels a bit more I think useful for them. And so if you with that kind of rationale or framing in mind, sorry, this timer is just going off. With that framing in mind, it's thinking, well, if we believe that people should be able to speak up and develop as active citizens, and young people have and schools have a role in that, then the question is there, who should be involved? And obviously, Ofsted is saying, let's get everybody involved. And you might be thinking, oh, how do we do that? So I guess it's about an honest discussion about how do you do that as a staff team, and how can you make it easy? Because sort of a simple structure to go beyond the display, I think, is it's not easy, but this is how we think about it: is get everybody involved in regular meetings, build on your school council, make it more visible, and use debates as well. I'm just going to recap my 5 points, and then I'm going to answer any questions, and I'll also tell you a bit about Smart School Council's program, because I really am terrible at telling people about it, and it's not very good. If anyone's got any questions as I just recap, please pop them in. I'd love to get your perspective. I'd also love to hear like which bit of British values you're most unsure or concerned about, like which part of it is the one that you think, oh, that could be a bit tricky. I think I'd be curious to hear what you think about that. So just to recap, before I come to the questions. So firstly, it's about democracy, speaking, getting people speaking up. So show what you're doing, show that it's active, show that it goes beyond, oh, these are the British values that like are these static things that don't move, but combine that with, well, actually, here's what we're doing to kind of make them happen and make them alive. And what else would I say? Quick wins, yeah. So if you want to have like a termly challenge, like I'm sure you get lots of ideas if you had a challenge to help young people lead a way to make school more fair and more equal or more respectful. Third one, build on your school council. It's an amazing system, a school council, but it's not enough on its own, and the research backs that up. So what we suggest is really let's build on it by having regular-ish, can do them once a month if you want. I think that's one of the questions I'll come back to. Do regular class meetings or tutor group meetings that take 5 or 10 minutes and get the pupils to lead them. Like it's pretty simple with the right tools. And then fourthly, use debates. So much going on. We can help with that if you'd like, but so much going on, and I can share these questions that I've got in the slides. And then fifthly, just trying to keep it simple, which I probably don't need to say too much more about. Fantastic. So Victoria's got a question. Thank you. So how often do schools typically hold these class meetings? So it really, it depends. It's totally up to schools and how they like to do it. Some just do 1 per half term, 2 per half term. Other schools then go to weekly, because they love the sort of structure of doing it, on a Friday afternoon before lunch or something. We don't really mind. We just suggest that I guess we're challenging or trying to help you think, actually, how do we get everybody involved rather than just maybe 15 pupils at the start of the year? L. Jones, ours is mainly from the parents, some backlash from sharing cultures and life in modern Britain to parents that don't want them exposed. Diversity Week is always tricky for us for this reason. Okay, really interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? That's not a simple one, I guess, because they might have a perception of what's being done, and it might be different from what actually is being done, isn't it? I'd be curious to hear more about that, because that's I hadn't thought of the parents being a factor in this. Yeah, really interesting. Thank you. Nick, thank you. Greg, have to dash for another meeting. Oh, cool. Okay, no worries. Great. So I'm just gonna, if anyone's got any more questions, please do pop them in, because I'm keen to hear new aspects of this that I hadn't really learned. Sorry. I'm not meant to be opening that. And yeah, so I guess just to quickly talk about the Smart School Council's program. So if you want if you want to get some help with this, I think, then our program is the Smart School Council's program. Obviously, it's focused. It sounds like it's focused on creating a school council, which it kind of is, but really at the heart of it, it's about getting more voices involved in democracy and pupil voice. And so if you'd like to join up, you get the tool that I've shared with you. You get all the reports and data that I'm sharing on the screen there, so you can see all the data from the questions that are coming back. You get access to about 2,000 questions and our kind of British values questions. So all the questions that I've shared and plus way more are all loaded into the tool there. which is really slow at the moment. So sorry. Yeah, so you can see kind of, for example, this is our this week's questions. Should everyone get a day off for their birthday? So obviously not all our questions are British values questions. Some of them International Day of Peace, calm and happy. Some of them are a bit more simple. Yeah, so there's 2,000 of those, and also it gives you all the evidence, right? So part of the problem is that it's harder to evidence this. So our tool gives you all the kind of the stats and data you need to show to Ofsted that how you're engaging everybody in democracy and British values, and with your kind of history tab there. But it's a cool program. I'm a little bit biased, but I do think it's a cool program, because 9 in 10 schools, basically, I think it's actually nine and a half schools, if that existed, renew every year. Schools stay with us, so we're really proud of growing to about 650 schools, 300,000 young people involved, which is amazing. So we do have some funding available to subsidise places at this time of the year if you'd like to join. If your school is 30% plus free school meals, then we have some subsidised places to bring the programme down to £99 for your first year. So yeah, so if you're plus 30%, and you're interested to join, let me know, or I'll reply to my email that I'll send. And also, if your school isn't 30% plus, you can still join with our school council masterclass, which is basically, it gives you sorry, I forgot what to say, the membership and the CPD all together for 199, and I think there's maybe 15 places left. So there's not many of those. If you want one of those, again, just reply to my email. And the first one, as I said, from the £99 places that we had 100, and I think we're down to single figures now. So if you want one, get in there quick. Oh, there's somebody just joining the meeting now. They must have got the time wrong. It seems like a weird time to join, but welcome. Jesse's got a question. I'm just going to skip to that one. With the class meetings, are you able to record answers in order to check understanding? We do gather assemblies and will sometimes ask questions about school, how we keep them safe in school, and we need more than one answer. Yes. So usually what we do in that situation, Jesse, is there's like a little box after the questions are included, or so the answers go in, and you're able to kind of rank this one and this one and this one. And basically, I think that's what you're asking, so that you're checking the understanding, and you're also, because often there's multiple correct answers, and in fact, some of our debates, particularly in SEN schools, all the answers are correct, because you just want to create a discussion. So yeah, there's that comment box which can help with that. Thank you to everyone who's saying thank you. We're running over time, so I just want to say a big thanks to everyone for coming along. I really appreciate you spending time this afternoon with me, kind of mid-September, when you've got so much on. I will send you the slides. I'd love to have you on the programme if you are interested and want to kind of make some of this easier and want to link it up with your school council work. I'll stay on for a few minutes if anyone's got any questions. But yeah, really, really appreciate your time, and thanks for everything that you're doing, because you're doing all this British value stuff day in, day out with pupils. It's just I think it's just kind of structuring some of it in a different way. So thank you. I'll hang on if anyone's got any additional questions.